Hello everybody, welcome back to Wine and PV. I'm your host Wayne, here with Matt Licklider from Lioco Wine Company. When we come back, he's going to tell us all about the wines that he brought us. See you in a second. Hey everybody, welcome back. Matt, thanks a lot for coming up from the Bay Area. Guys, this is Matt, and he is the face behind these wines. Is that well said?
The face and the body.
And the body behind these wines.
Right.
Yeah, and he's up from the Bay Area. So tell us a little bit about Lioco Wine and when it first formed and how you got so passionate about this grape juice.
We started our winery in 2005. At the time, I was working for an importer in the Bay Area. We were importing French and Italian wine. My partner was the wine buyer for Spago Beverly Hills. He was Wolfgang Puck's wine guy. And I was selling him French wine and Italian wine. And we'd always talked about maybe someday doing something together in California. But we wanted to see if we could make wine in California that moved us in the same way that the great wines from Burgundy and Loire and Piedmont, Champagne moved us. So when we started Lioco in 2005, it was an experiment, and the experiment was, can we make wine in California that has the same sort of resonance as the great European wines?
Okay, so the first wine we're going to talk about is the Lioco 2009 Chardonnay, Sonoma County. Now I had done a show with one of my reps here a few weeks ago. They brought this wine in, and I liked it. And then Tim called me and said, hey, look, Matt's going to be in town, so let's come over, let me try those other wines. And one thing I noticed is your lack of oak. It's all stainless steel tank fermented, yet it is a little bit creamy, a little bit buttery, but not really.
Yeah, the idea for our Chardonnay program, we were most moved by the Chardonnay wines from Chablis and the Macon, the southern part of Burgundy. And at the time, in 2005, nobody in California was exploring Chardonnay fermented in neutral vessels. Everybody was making big, buttery, oaky Chardonnay that was barrel fermented.
My faves. Sorry.
So hey, and there's nothing wrong with those.
No, not at all.
We like to drink Puligny Montrachet and Meursault, just like the next guy. But for this project, we wanted to see what it would be like to experiment with Chardonnay in a neutral vessel. So these Chardonnays are done in stainless steel tanks. They do go through their malolactic fermentations, so they do have nice, rich, creamy texture. They just don't have the vanilla, butterscotch, oaky nose and mouthfeel.
Okay. Yeah. All right. So, cheers, everybody. This is again, one right here from Sonoma County. What about the vineyards? When you source this fruit.
So this wine in the glass is a blend of 4 different vineyard sites that we blend together. One of the fruit sources in the Russian River Valley, one of them is in Carneros, one in Dry Creek, and one in the very southern end of the Alexander Valley. So when you're making a blended Chardonnay or a blended mono-varietal wine, it's kind of like making a stew, and you want to source different seasons and spices to make the stew more complex. So from the Carneros Chardonnay piece, we get acid, and from the Russian River piece, we get some nice floral qualities, and from the Alexander Valley, we get kind of a mineral note, and the Dry Creek component brings the kind of fleshy stone fruit to the wine.
I like Dry Creek Chards.
Yeah.
So all right, so let's get this little shot. I love the nose on this wine. Even though it's stainless steel tank fermented, you got a little minerality to it, a little bit of lemon. It's a nice Chardonnay. It's about $18 a bottle, retail. And it's available on my website as well as these other ones will be. That's nice. What I like about it, it's not over the top. There's no oak. Yet when you swallow it, it's still that nice, clean, creamy finish.
That's right.
Yeah.
I always tell people this is what Chardonnay looks like before makeup and perfume. When she rolls out of bed in the morning. Chardonnay au naturel. And Chardonnay actually has a lot of really beautiful fruit characteristics. So for us, it was like, why would we want to mask that with a bunch of heavy oak treatment?
And I always tell people on my wine tours here, that Chardonnay probably is the most manipulative grape in the world.
Yes.
Anywhere from, like, you make it stainless steel tank fermented to 100% new oak, 100% ML,
That's right.
oak monster splinters in the tongue.
That's right.
All right, now the difference is next wine. Give me a little bit about this label. how did you come up with this little concept right
Yeah,
here?
the idea was that the wines would be color coded. Every wine has its own
Secret
color.
wine.
And then you can see there's a little textural pattern in the color block there. What we do is we pick up a piece of soil from each vineyard that we buy fruit from, and we make an ink pressing. And whatever reading we get off that ink pad, we translate into the label itself. The back of the label is kind of, I think, where it gets really interesting. Basically, it sort of reads like, in the industry we call them a tech sheet, where all the technical data would be. So it talks about the aroma and the flavor, the food pairings, it talks about the vineyard, how the wine was made, and then it gives you even all the lab analysis, the total acidity, the bricks at harvest, all that stuff.
I like how you put that on the back. Most people, unless they get into a little bit of wine, these are just like Chinese things right back here. However, for the people who do get into wine a little bit, they'll understand what all this stuff says. And dungeon this with ginger sauce, duck confit salad. I'm coming over for dinner at your place.
We live in the Bay Area.
Yeah, no kidding, right?
We sit down every vintage and we actually taste these wines and rewrite the tasting notes. So those are not repeat boilerplate tasting notes. They're very specific to this wine and this vintage.
There's a complete difference on these wines.
Yeah.
Even though the same vintage, of course, this is Caneros. Now, where do you source the fruit? In this bottle right here.
So that wine comes from a vineyard right on the border between Napa and Sonoma in the Los Carneros AVA.
Okay.
It's a very cold, sort of marine-influenced site. It's on a southwest-facing slope looking back across San Pablo Bay at downtown San Francisco. What we liked about this vineyard was it was legitimately cool climate. The farming was very even and clean, and the vines were quite old. These are 30-year-old vines hanging a very premier clone of Chardonnay called Wenti clone. So the raw material was flawless, and we're excited to buy fruit here.
Little footnote. When Oregon first started planting a lot of the Chardonnay up here back in the 80s, they used the Wenti clone. Bad choice. It's a late ripener, late bloomer, and it needs a lot more heat.
That's right.
Even though Caneros is cooler, it's up here it's cooler than Caneros.
Yes.
So we had one of those things, that went on that, we would be able to ripen the grapes, but never to the optimum ripeness. They're really flabby. They never had any varietal character. So I'm sure the Wenti clone was good for sparkling wine when you harvested a lot lower sugar and higher acidity, but not that. I like this wine. This is about $28, $29 a bottle retail. But I like the nose on it. It's clean. It's crisp.
Yeah, to me, I always think of savory notes. There's some slight herbal notes to the wine, and very much kind of a wet stone, kind of lemon butter quality to the wine. Some of the very things that we love about white Burgundy, I think we were able to sort of coerce out of this vineyard site. So it's a wine we're pretty proud of.
Yeah, and the case production on this wine here?
We made 800 cases of that wine.
All right. That's decent size, not huge, not small.
Right.
You're allowed to distribute a little bit outside of the city.
Yep.
All right. This next wine, this wine here is very interesting. Matt, tell us a little bit about this wine.
So this is a wine we call Indica. It's sort of the red counterpart to the Sonoma County Chardonnay. It's got a screw cap. We wanted to make a Wednesday night red, a barbecue red. Something that was going to be really food versatile. It's going to work with anything coming off the grill, whether it's sausages, pork chops, chicken, salmon, what have you. And in Europe, these wines can be found in pretty much every village. They're just the little peasant wines that people don't think much about, but that taste perfectly delicious.
He brought his peasant wine to me.
Yes, this is a peasant.
How thoughtful was he to do that for me?
That's right.
And he's bringing it to you guys too. Yeah, what I liked about this when we were talking about it was it's a field blend.
Yeah.
And 30 acres?
Yep.
And you buy the whole.
I'm sorry, 30 tons.
30 tons.
Yep.
How many acres is that?
It's about 10 acres.
Okay, so relatively low yields.
Yes.
Head pruned.
Head pruned.
Okay. And this is a blend of.
This is Old Vine Carignan with Mourvedre and Petit Syrah.
Yeah.
And Carignan is a grape that was widely planted in California in the 70s and 80s. And in the last 25 years has largely been ripped out. I mean, this variety is well on its way to becoming extinct in California. So there's an aspect of this wine that we're particularly proud to bring to the market, which is this is like an old world, kind of old California style red blend. And
I think back in the 60s and 70s, when Robert Mondavi built his winery and have some of these old vineyards, they were all head pruned back in the day. And they were field blends. You know, they just started planting things, and then you harvested what you had, and you blended it all together. You made a wine.
That's right.
You know, now we live in such a technical age where this is a Cabernet, this is this clone, this is from this area.
Right.
And I like these old field blends. You know, this is nice. Little olive on the nose.
Yeah, you know, the aspect of blending is as old as wine is itself. You know, some of the great wines in the world come from blends, and I think we've gotten so conditioned in the new world to thinking about wine as a varietal.
Yeah.
But yet, you know, these blended wines, first of all, they oftentimes provide great values. They oftentimes have great complexity, and yeah, we're excited about it. It's the only blended wine that we make in our cellar.
Excellent. And this is about 18 bucks a bottle too, retail. Anyway, anything else you want to say to all your fans out there?
My fans.
All your fans? You'd be a star right now.
Just that, you know, I think what I can stand behind is that the wines are honest. They're not manipulated. They're very clean. We use very, very little sulfur, SO2, in the wines, so you can actually drink 3 or 4 glasses and save yourself a hangover the next day.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Hey man, thank you very much for stopping by, and
thanks for having
me. You're very welcome. And guys, these wines will be available on the website. Forward them to your friends, and until I see you guys next time, remember, a couple of glasses of wine every day is all I ask. See ya.